For my 21st birthday, my parents left me a note: "Be sweet and watch your sister's 5 dogs, we're going to the spa." I said nothing. I packed my bags and left 2 hours before they did. When they came home that night, the dogs had ripped the couch, scratched the doors, and wrecked the carpet. They lost their non-refundable weekend, and I never answered their calls. The cake crumbs were still on my shirt when I saw it, a note, propped against an empty dog bowl. That tiny piece of paper wasn't just a message, it was a cruel joke on my 21st birthday, and it split my life in two. The house was eerily quiet, not the usual cacophony of a bustling family. Just a low, anxious whimpering from behind the sunroom gate, and the unmistakable, humid stench of unwashed fur and cheap kibble hanging heavy in the air. The note read, "Be a darling and watch your sister's 5 dogs. We're off to the spa. Love you." That was it. No happy birthday, Ethan. No thanks for always stepping up. Not even a lousy smiley face. 21 years old. I wasn't expecting fireworks or some grand gesture, but I stupidly thought maybe this year would be different. Maybe they'd remember I wasn't just a built-in babysitter with a driver's license and a pulse. Maybe someone in this family would finally treat me like a person. But no, of course not. Why would they? I was the responsible one, the quiet one. The one who didn't cause scenes, didn't pick fights, didn't make everything about himself. That was always Chloe's job. Chloe, my older sister by 2 years, my parents' favorite child since birth. She had a flair for drama and a talent for weaponized helplessness. Wrecked her car? Dad bought her another. Dropped out of college for the 3rd time? Mom spun it into a journey of self-discovery. Impulse adopted 5 high-strung rescue dogs from some sketchy online breeder? Guess who got guilt into feeding them every time she had a mental health break? Yours truly. Me, Ethan, the human doormat. I should have seen it coming. My mom had been dropping weird comments all week. "You don't have plans this weekend, right?" Or, "You love dogs, don't you? You're so good with them." And my dad, my dad, just chuckled behind his newspaper like it was all so charming. But I didn't press. I never do. Because after 2 decades of walking on eggshells, you just stop questioning the people who keep handing you the broom. I hadn't even noticed the note at first. I'd gotten back from class late, final semester of undergrad, trying to keep my GPA alive, and found the house that way, eerily quiet. Then the smell hit me. And there they were, all 5 of them, snarling, yapping, pacing like furry inmates on death row. Empty bowls. No water. Taped to the counter right above the bag of unopened dog treats was that freaking note. For a second, I just stood there in stunned silence. I even let out a small, humorless laugh. What else was there to do? I picked it up, turned it over, hoping for a "just kidding" on the back. Nope. Just a second note tucked behind the first, this one in Chloe's loopy cursive: "Tchx bro, they eat twice a day. Love belly rubs. And please don't let them on the couch. Also, Trixie's allergic to beef." No timestamp. No heads up. Just dumped on me, like always. I don't know why that moment finally broke something in me. Maybe it was spending the entire day waiting for someone, anyone, to acknowledge my birthday. Not a single call from my parents. No text from Chloe. Even the group chat with my old high school friends was dead silent, save for a recycled meme. And here I was, elbow deep in dog duty for people who couldn't even be bothered to say happy birthday once. I sank onto the armrest of the couch, careful to keep the dogs from jumping up, as if that rule still mattered. I just stared at the floor. My phone buzzed. It was a selfie from my parents. Mom in a white robe. Dad flashing a peace sign. Both lounging in a massage room. The caption, finally, some RNR. I swear, they looked younger, happier, freer, like dumping their responsibilities on me was the vacation itself. I didn't reply. Didn't even open the text. I just locked my phone, leaned back, and let one of the dogs sniff my shoelaces. There was this tightness in my chest. Not anger, exactly, but something colder, deeper, like I'd finally hit my emotional credit limit. And all I could think was, I'm done. But when you're the good kid, saying I'm done doesn't come easy. You rehearse it 1,000 times in your head before you ever say it out loud. You imagine fights that never happen, monologues you'll never deliver, because you're too used to being the fixer, the helper, the one who stays behind and cleans up the mess. So, I didn't yell. I didn't call them up and demand an explanation. I didn't even rant in the family group chat like Chloe would have done. I just stood up, walked upstairs to my room, and started packing. Not angrily, just methodically, like I was cleaning out a hotel room, not leaving my childhood home. A few changes of clothes, laptop, chargers, the small stack of birthday cards I'd saved from past years, most from professors, old friends, even a neighbor down the street. None from family. Downstairs, the dogs were still pacing, whining, confused. I didn't blame them. They hadn't asked to be dragged into my sister's self-centered circus. But I wasn't going to be their collateral damage either. Not anymore. 2 hours later, I was gone. I left the house spotless. Not for them, for me. I fed the dogs, filled their bowls with fresh water, and left the baby gate open so they had full run of the place. They'd figure it out. Or not. I didn't care. And when my parents came back that night to a shredded couch, claw marks on the doors, and tufts of fur covering their precious rugs, well, let's just say they were in for one heck of a welcome home party. But I wouldn't know because by then I was 3 towns away, checked into a cheap motel with a vending machine dinner and a peace I hadn't felt in years. For the first time in my life, I didn't pick up when they called. I didn't check my phone for 2 whole days. Not because I was trying to prove a point, but because I needed the silence. I needed to sit in the stillness of that motel room, all beige wallpaper and flickering light bulbs, and figure out what the hell I was doing with my life. I brought one backpack, a half-charged phone, and the birthday gift I bought for myself, a second-hand camera I'd been eyeing for months. I'd planned to take it out that weekend, hike up to Old Ridge Trail, shoot the sunrise, maybe get some distance. But now, I just stared at it, still wrapped in the paper bag. The voicemail inbox filled up fast. First, it was Mom, sweet and sugar-coated, "Hi, honey. Just checking in. I'm sure there's a good reason you left. We're back now. The dogs were a little rowdy, but no biggie. Anyway, call me when you can." Then, Chloe, more casual, "Oh, hey. So, the dogs wrecked the couch. Like, destroyed it. You couldn't have at least crated them or something? Seriously?" She hung up without even pretending to care. Then, Dad, his voice thick with disappointment, "Ethan, you left without saying anything. That's not like you. You should have told us. We would have made other arrangements. Just call your mother back, would you? Would have made other arrangements, right? Like how they would have paid attention to my birthday if I just reminded them, or would have cleaned up after Chloe if I just asked nicely. That's the thing about my family. They always speak in retroactive empathy. Like their concern only kicks in after the damage is done. And even then, it's conditional. On Monday morning, I finally cracked and listened to the latest voicemail. Chloe again. "Okay. What the hell, Ethan? The dogs ruined the floor. Like, actual damage. Scratch marks everywhere. The couch cushions are toast. And Mom is freaking out about the carpet. You owe us for this. You just left them here. Who does that? Call me." That one got to me. Not because I felt guilty, I didn't. But because it confirmed what I'd always suspected, I was never the sibling. I was the cleanup crew, the fallback plan, the second string. They didn't care that I was gone. They cared that their furniture was ruined and their weekend was wasted. And somehow, that was my fault. I still didn't respond. I checked out of the motel, drove 2 hours south, and crashed on a college buddy's couch for a few nights. Caleb didn't ask questions, just handed me a beer and tossed me a blanket. We watched old movies and made boxed mac and cheese like we were back in sophomore year. It was the most peace I'd felt in weeks. Meanwhile, back home, the group chat blew up. Mom, Monday 9:17 a.m. Ethan, please. This isn't like you. We need to talk. Chloe, Monday 11:03 a.m. The cleaning estimate is $840. We're splitting it 50/50ths. Fair is fair. Dad, Monday 4:51 p.m. Your mother's upset. That rug was a gift from her grandmother. Chloe, Tuesday 8:40 a.m. You think this is funny? Grow up. Mom, Tuesday 12:10 p.m. Ethan, you're acting like a child. This isn't how family works. That line did it. This isn't how family works. I stared at that sentence for a long time. Reread it until the words lost meaning. Because if this was family, if using someone, ignoring them, guilt-tripping them, then calling it love, then maybe I didn't want any part of it. I finally typed back a single message, you left me a note. Then I muted the thread. The next day, Chloe showed up at Caleb's place. I should have known she'd tracked me down. I'd forgotten she followed me on Snap Map. She banged on the door like she owned the place, yelling my name like we were still 12 and I'd taken her hairbrush. Caleb answered before I could stop him. Is Ethan here? She asked, hands on her hips, wearing oversized sunglasses like she was dodging paparazzi. Yeah, Caleb said. Should he not be? I need to talk to him. Then talk, he shrugged and stepped aside. I stayed seated on the couch. Didn't even look up from my phone. Chloe stomped in like a one-woman storm. You seriously just vanished? You didn't think about the dogs, about Mom, about me? I thought about all of you, I said calmly. That's the problem. She blinked. You're being dramatic, says the woman who left 5 animals in a house with no warning. They're not animals, Ethan. They're my kids. That actually made me laugh. You didn't even feed them. She flushed. Well, I was under the impression you'd be there all weekend. I mean, that's what you do, right? Help out. Be the hero. No, I said. That's what I used to do. For a second, she looked confused, like I'd spoken in a foreign language. Then her expression hardened. Well, guess what? Mom and Dad are talking about pressing charges for damages. That got Caleb's attention. You're kidding. I'm not, she snapped. They're serious. The floor's ruined. The rug's done. The spa won't refund them. It's your fault. My fault? I stood up, not yelling, not towering, just tired. You left me a note. You didn't ask. You didn't call. You expected me to drop everything on my birthday because that's what I always do, right? And now that I didn't, I'm the villain? Chloe crossed her arms. You abandoned the dogs. They weren't mine to begin with, I said. Silence. Long, uncomfortable silence. I'm not coming back, I added. She scoffed. You're just going to cut everyone off over one weekend? It was never just one weekend. I walked to the door, opened it, and gestured for her to leave. She didn't move. You really think this is how you fix things? You think running away makes you a grown-up? No, I said quietly. I think setting boundaries does. Then I closed the door behind her. That night, the texts started again. First from Mom, sad and syrupy. Then from Dad, cold and clipped. Then Chloe, unhinged. They painted me as unstable, selfish, immature. Called it a phase. Said I was acting out. Said I needed to come home and make things right. But I wasn't the one who broke anything. The next day, Caleb told me he'd overheard his neighbor talking to someone on the phone. A woman, loud and entitled, something about my brother and getting him evicted. I didn't need a name. I knew it was Chloe. That was the moment, the line in the sand, the point of no return. Because for all the guilt, all the manipulation, all the years of bending over backward for them, now they were actively trying to sabotage my life. Not just emotionally, but tangibly, legally, publicly. I packed my stuff that night. Not because I was running, but because I was ready. Caleb offered to let me stay. Said we'd figure it out. But I had a better idea. I had something Chloe didn't know. Something Mom and Dad had forgotten. A card I hadn't played yet. And I was done waiting to be dealt in. By the time I left Caleb's place, I was flat broke, emotionally fried, and had nowhere else to go. I wasn't spiraling, exactly. It was quieter than that, like drifting underwater. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just kept moving. That's the funny thing about rock bottom. It doesn't always come with sirens and explosions. Sometimes it's just a cheap duffel bag, a near-dead phone, and a long drive to nowhere with the windows down because the AC doesn't work. I crashed at a 24-hour diner that night, nursing a coffee for 4 hours until the manager gave me a suspicious once-over and said they don't do loitering. I smiled politely and left a tip I couldn't afford. Then I sat in my car until sunrise, flipping through job listings and half-baked life plans like they were lottery tickets. I considered going back. I really did. Not because I missed them, but because I didn't know what else to do. But every time I thought about walking through that front door again, Chloe with her condescending tone, Mom pretending nothing ever happened, Dad saying, "Let's just move on," like my feelings were a speed bump, something in my chest tightened. Like walking back would mean erasing everything I'd just started to stand up for. So I didn't. Instead, I pulled into a gas station, bought a 99-cent notebook and a pen, and started making a list, things I actually want. A place that's mine. A job that pays enough to breathe. People who actually see me. A life that doesn't revolve around apologizing. A reason to wake up that isn't obligation. It wasn't profound, but it was a start. I texted a couple of old friends, not the fake kind who sent memes twice a year, but the ones who still remembered my favorite pizza topping and the time I accidentally walked into the girls' bathroom in 8th grade. Most didn't respond. One did. Caleb. We hadn't talked in nearly a year, but he messaged back in 5 minutes, "Dude, come stay. My roommate just bailed. You'd actually be saving my rent." So, I drove another 6 hours. Caleb lived in a worn-down 2-bedroom apartment above a bookstore. The stairwell smelled like mold and burnt popcorn, and the shower made a high-pitched squeal if you turned the handle too fast. But it was warm and quiet, and no one expected me to feed 5 dogs or stock the fridge. He didn't ask what happened, just threw me a blanket and made me eggs like we were back in freshman year. "Stay as long as you need," he said. I got a job 2 days later. It wasn't glamorous. A part-time shift at a print shop down the block. Minimum wage, fluorescent lighting, an old guy named Frank who kept calling me kid, even though we were probably the same age. But it was honest. And for the first time in months, I didn't dread waking up. I'd walk to work every morning with a thermos Caleb loaned me. Earbuds in, hoodie up, breathing in the cold air like it meant something, like I was finally part of the world, not just watching from the bleachers. Nights were quieter. I'd sit on the fire escape with my camera, snapping long exposures of the street below, trying to remember how it felt to be curious about life again. I started posting the photos online. Nothing serious, just a throwaway Instagram account where I could drop pictures without anyone judging. I didn't expect much, but people started noticing. A travel blog reposted one of my shots. Then a small art collective DM'd me asking if I wanted to contribute to their next zine. I said yes before I could talk myself out of it. It wasn't money. Not yet, but it was something better, recognition. One night, a message popped up from an unfamiliar account. It was a woman named Hannah. She said she ran a small creative agency looking for a photographer for a local event. I told her I didn't have gear. She said, "We'll rent it. Just bring your eye." I almost said no. I was still walking around with imposter syndrome like a second spine. But something in me, some tired, stubborn part that had lived too long in the shadows, said yes. The event was a community fundraiser. Nothing fancy, but I showed up early, stayed late, and shot everything I could. Kids playing tag under string lights. A grandpa slow dancing with his wife on a creaky wooden stage. Someone spilling lemonade and laughing about it. Real stuff, unfiltered, unposed. When I sent Hannah the photos, she replied with one word, "Wow." She paid me $150 and asked if I'd be interested in doing another shoot. Then another. 2 weeks later, I bought my first real camera with the money I'd saved. Around that time, Chloe started texting again. First, it was subtle, "Hey, just checking in every few days." Then, "We haven't seen you in a while. Mom's been worried." Worried, right? Like she hadn't tried to get me kicked out of Caleb's place. Like she hadn't called me selfish and unstable. I ignored her. Then came the guilt trip texts. "Chloe, Wednesday, 6:42 p.m., it's been 2 months, Ethan. Are you seriously ghosting your entire family over a dog thing? Chloe, Friday, 11:10 a.m., Mom's birthday is coming up. If you don't show up, she'll be crushed. Just saying. Chloe, Saturday, 2:37 p.m., okay. Wow. So, this is who you are now, Mr. Independent with his little camera business. Good for you. Don't forget who helped you get there." That last one nearly made me throw my phone across the room. Helped me? They hadn't even said happy birthday. They hadn't supported my photography when I was 16 and wanted to take classes. Dad had called it a hobby, not a career. Mom told me to be more realistic. I stared at the message for a long time. Then I blocked her. That was the day I realized something important: rock bottom wasn't just a place. It was a filter. It showed you who would come looking for you when you vanished, and who would only miss what you used to do for them. Caleb threw me a small birthday dinner a month later. Belated, but it was the first one that actually felt like mine. A couple of friends from the art collective showed up. Hannah brought cupcakes. Frank from the print shop even stopped by with a used camera strap and said, "Don't tell anyone I'm soft." I didn't, but I wrote him a thank you note anyway. I was still broke, still rebuilding, but I felt whole. There was this quiet strength growing in me, like muscles I didn't know I had. I wasn't angry anymore. Not exactly. Just done. Done begging to be included. Done waiting to be chosen. Done playing the part of the dutiful son and convenient brother. I'd started writing again, too. Nothing serious, just journaling. But it helped. Helped me track the climb back up, one slow inch at a time. A few weeks after my first paid gig, Hannah introduced me to someone from a regional magazine. They were doing a feature on local artists and needed portrait shots. I got the job, then another. I wasn't just getting work, I was building a name. People started tagging me, recommending me, following me. I wasn't famous, but I was free. And that's when I saw it. A new post from Chloe on Facebook. A photo of our family house, pristine and renovated. A caption that read, "Grateful for new beginnings. Family first always." And the kicker? My name tagged at the bottom. Like I'd had anything to do with it. Like I was part of the team again. I felt my jaw tighten. I hadn't spoken to them in months. Hadn't gone home. Hadn't answered a single call. And yet here she was, rewriting the narrative in real time, playing the loving sister, erasing the part where she used me and tried to ruin me when I walked away. But I wasn't going to argue with her. I was going to show her. Not through words, not through some dramatic confrontation, but through something better. Because by then, I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was planning. And what I had in mind would make them wish they'd never handed me that note. I didn't see the setup as revenge at first. Not consciously, anyway. It started as something simpler, a quiet urge to reclaim the parts of myself they'd always dismissed. I didn't want to burn bridges. I wanted to prove I never needed theirs to begin with. But the deeper I got into my work, the more I realized just how many doors had been closed to me before, and how quickly they were opening now. By April, I was shooting 3 to 4 events a week, portraits, engagements, even a small wedding. Hannah got me a few gigs with local businesses that needed headshots for their websites and ads. My inbox stopped being a ghost town. I started raising my rates. People still booked me. And somewhere in that busy blur of lenses, lighting, and late-night editing sessions, a switch flipped in my brain. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was building. And suddenly, I had leverage. Because, as fate would have it, my parents' suburban neighborhood had recently started a rebranding campaign. Some property developer had bought up 3 lots and was turning them into a community space, complete with a coffee shop, a new dog park, and, this is where I started laughing, a Creative Commons for local artists to showcase work and hold events. Guess who got the contract to photograph the groundbreaking? Me. Hannah pitched me without telling me first. I got the confirmation email one morning before breakfast. I reread it 3 times to make sure it wasn't a prank. And then I saw the name on the community board sponsorship committee, Eleanor Hayes. My mother. The same woman who once told me photography was a nice little hobby, but I'd never make a living from it. Apparently, now I was qualified to capture her ribbon-cutting ceremony. The layers of irony were so rich, I didn't even know how to process it. Part of me wanted to decline out of principle. Another part, the part that had carried their emotional baggage like a pack mule for 21 years, saw the opportunity for what it was, an open door, not into their house, but into their world. And this time, I got to decide what story got told. So, I said yes. Hannah arranged the shoot logistics. I scoped out the location, marked lighting angles, tested sound, every detail locked down. I wasn't just going to show up, I was going to own it. I started prepping a behind-the-scenes vlog. My first. Just raw footage of me setting up tripods, narrating the layout, giving tips for event coverage. But halfway through filming it, I had an idea. What if the video wasn't just behind the scenes? What if it told the real story? Not the one my parents would post on Facebook. Not the polished version Chloe would share with some syrupy caption about the value of community. But my story. I didn't make it bitter. I made it honest. I opened with a shot of the community lot, empty and half-paved, and said, "Funny how life circles back." A year ago, I couldn't get anyone to take me seriously with a camera, least of all my family. They thought this was a phase, a distraction, not something real. But now? Now I'm getting paid to document the world they live in. And the best part? They hired me without even realizing it. I smiled into the lens. So, here's what you do when the people who wrote you off accidentally invite you back in the door, you hold it wide open. You bring receipts. And you tell the truth. I didn't name names, but the subtext was clear enough. To anyone who knew me, and especially to those who didn't, it looked like a story of quiet triumph. But it was something more than that. It was preparation. Because as the shoot date approached, I started pulling threads I'd left untouched for too long. I revisited old messages, saved voicemails, screenshot texts. Not to weaponize them, just to have a record, a paper trail. I wasn't planning to use it. Not yet. But I wanted it ready because I had a feeling. And that feeling sharpened when I got a phone call from a blocked number the week before the event. I almost didn't answer. Hello, Ethan? Hi, it's your mom. Silence on my end. She rushed to fill it. I heard you're doing the photos for the groundbreaking. I didn't realize it was you until they sent over the contract. Still, I said nothing. We're really proud of you, she added awkwardly. You've come a long way. I let that hang. Thanks. Pause. Will you be staying after? There's a small dinner afterward. Just a few of the committee members. And Chloe. She's really excited to see you. I almost laughed. I could picture it perfectly, the quiet recalibration happening on her end the moment she realized she might have pushed too far. That the prodigal son wasn't crawling back. He was showing up with a camera and a platform. I'll think about it, I said. I've got other clients to see that day. I'll lie. But she didn't question it. I hung up feeling both empty and electric. They weren't sorry. They were calculating, realizing slowly that the narrative they'd spun for years, Ethan, the helper, the backup, the boy with no backbone, didn't work anymore. And that terrified them. That night, I called Caleb. I need your help. He didn't even ask why. I told him my idea. Half-baked, risky, petty, maybe, but not illegal, not cruel, and undeniably satisfying. You sure? He asked when I finished. Completely. Then let's do it. Caleb handled the technical side. He was a wizard with sound editing, and he still had access to university AV equipment. I handled the planning. We stitched together a presentation, a silent reel to play at the post-event dinner if, and only if, things went a certain way. I wasn't going to provoke them, but I was going to be ready if they tried to rewrite the script again. The event day arrived like any other. Gray skies, coffee jitters, tight deadlines. I wore my cleanest button-down and a camera strap that didn't dig into my neck. Hannah was already there when I arrived, clipboard in hand, hair pinned up, running logistics like a general. Big day, she smiled. Bigger than they think, I said. The ceremony itself went off without a hitch. The mayor gave a speech. A local high school band played a barely recognizable version of the national anthem. My mom smiled for every photo. Chloe wore a blazer 3 sizes too expensive for someone who still lived rent-free. I got my shots. All of them. And not just of the event. Of them. Chloe whispering to my mom with that tight-lipped smirk she always wore when she thought no one was looking. My dad scanning the crowd like he was checking for important people to impress. It was like watching actors slip in and out of character between takes, and I was the one holding the camera. Afterward, they pulled me aside. Can we talk? Mom asked. I glanced at my watch quickly. Chloe stepped forward, all fake warmth and overdone perfume. We're really glad you came, she said, patting my arm like a politician. Seriously, this whole thing, you crushed it. Thanks. And listen, she added, her voice dropping. We were thinking maybe you could help us build a little online presence for the family, you know, like a legacy thing. I blinked. A legacy thing? Yeah, you could document our family stuff. Reunions, vacations, house projects. You've got the eye. I let that hang. You mean, like how I documented my birthday last year? Her smile twitched. I've got to go, I said. And I did. But not before making sure the dinner was still happening. Caleb would be there in 30 minutes. Hannah, too. I had one more part to play, one last shot to line up, and if everything went the way I expected, they'd finally see the whole picture. The dinner was hosted in a modest but elegant event hall just off the edge of the new development site. Round tables with white tablecloths, catered trays of hors d'oeuvres, a string quartet playing in the corner. Nothing flashy, just upper-middle-class charm trying too hard. I walked in just as they were finishing the ribbon-cutting recap, with Chloe up front, mic in hand, hamming it up for the sponsors like she was the face of the whole operation. Caleb gave me a subtle nod from the back of the room. He was all ready. Stationed at the A/V booth we'd scoped out earlier, laptop hooked into the venue's projection system. Hannah stood nearby, chatting up one of the board members, wearing a neutral expression that gave away nothing. No one suspected a thing. I didn't want drama. I wanted precision. And I was about to give them the clearest picture I'd ever taken. Chloe stepped off stage, beaming like a reality TV host. Our parents were at a table near the front, basking in her glow, laughing like everything was fine, like the last year hadn't happened. Like I hadn't been ghosted, blamed, and cut off emotionally, just long enough for them to come crawling back when I became useful again. Mom saw me before anyone else did. Her expression lit up with performative warmth. "Ethan, you made it." I gave a tight smile. "Wouldn't miss it." Dad stood and clapped me on the back like we were old pals. And Chloe slid up beside me with her wine glass in hand. "Did you see the turnout?" she said, like I hadn't photographed every single face in the crowd. "You really captured something special today, Ethan." "I mean it." "I know," I said flatly. "And I'm glad you think so, because I brought something special to share." That caught her off guard. "Oh, you edited already?" "Sort of." I gave Caleb the signal. He tapped a few keys. The quartet stopped playing as the lights dimmed slightly. A few people looked around, curious but not alarmed. "This won't take long," I said to the room. "Just a short piece I've been working on. Not for the sponsors. For the family." I watched Chloe's smile freeze. Mom's wineglass paused mid-sip. Dad raised an eyebrow but stayed silent. Then the video began. It started harmlessly. Clips of the ribbon cutting, the band, the crowd, all framed beautifully, almost like a tourism promo. A few murmurs of approval from the audience. My mother nodded. Chloe glanced around, trying to look casual. Then the tone shifted. The visuals cut to black and white shots of the house I grew up in. The front steps, the old swing, the garage door that still had my initials carved into the frame from when I was 9. Over those images, my voice came in, calm. For a long time, I believed being useful was the same as being loved. I was wrong. A hush fell over the room. The next clip was a still frame of the note my parents left me on my 21st birthday. The real one. I'd kept it, scanned it, and now it filled the screen. "Be a darling, and watch your sister's 5 dogs. We're off to the spa." Laughter erupted from a few people in the back who didn't know the context. Then came the photo of the trashed living room. Chewed couch, scratched floor, carpet destroyed, all time-stamped, with no edits. Then came the audio. Snippets of voicemails, layered one after another. "Mom, this isn't how family works." "Dad, you should have told us. We would have made other arrangements." "Chloe, you owe us for this." Each quote played over a black screen. No music, just their voices. For years, my voiceover continued. I was the one who stayed behind, who cleaned up, who said yes because it was easier than fighting. And when I finally said no, they tried to rewrite the story. Then came the clips of Chloe at the groundbreaking, whispering to our mom, rolling her eyes, smirking when she thought the cameras weren't watching. Then, and this was the kicker, a still of her Facebook post tagging me as if I were part of their success. My name underlined in red. The caption, "Family first always." My voice came in one final time. This is what happens when you stop letting people use your silence to build their own legacy. You start telling your version of the truth. The screen faded to black. A single phrase appeared. White text on dark, some pictures don't need captions. Silence. Long, uncomfortable, deafening. Then someone in the back, one of the younger board members, started clapping. A few others joined in. Polite, confused, unsure what they just watched, but moved nonetheless. My mom sat frozen, hand clenched around her wine glass. Chloe stared daggers through me, lips parted like she wanted to say something but couldn't find the script. My dad leaned back in his chair, face unreadable. I didn't wait for them to speak. I stepped up to the mic. Thank you for watching, I said simply. Photos from today's event will be sent to your inboxes by Friday. That concludes my part in this project. And with that, I stepped away. Hannah intercepted me halfway to the door. Holy hell, she whispered, grabbing my arm. Are you okay? Better than ever. Caleb was already packing up the laptop, trying not to smirk. Remind me never to piss you off. I smiled. You'd have to matter a whole lot more to me first. We left before the fallout could start, but the fallout came anyway. The next morning, my email was full. 3 requests from local publications asking to feature the video as part of a series on toxic family dynamics. 1 message from a non-profit asking if I'd consider doing a short film on emotional mistreatment and family systems. And 24 new client inquiries for photography work. I didn't hear from my parents directly, but I did get a voicemail from Chloe. Ethan, she said, her voice tight, carefully modulated. That was low. You embarrassed Mom. You made us look like monsters. You think you're better than us now? Fine, but don't expect anyone to come crawling after you. You burned that bridge. Hope it was worth it. I didn't respond. I didn't need to, because sometimes silence is louder than any speech. I didn't go home after that. I didn't show up for Mother's Day. I didn't make peace. But I also didn't carry the weight anymore. I was free. My business grew. Hannah and I started collaborating full-time. Caleb got a new job and moved 2 blocks away. I found a place of my own, small but sunlit, with room for a studio setup and an espresso machine I'd always wanted but never let myself buy. And sometimes, just sometimes, I'd get messages from people who saw the video. Strangers, clients, former classmates, thank you for saying what I couldn't. You gave me the push to walk away. I finally feel seen. I didn't make the video for them, but I was glad it helped. Sometimes revenge isn't about ruining someone else. Sometimes it's about reclaiming yourself and making sure the world hears you loud and clear. I printed one of my photos, a shot of that old swing in front of my childhood home, slightly tilted with the sun just catching the edges of the chipped paint. I hung it above my desk, a reminder that even broken things can be framed beautifully. And some stories, especially the painful ones, deserve to be told, not whispered, not rewritten, told. And when you finally do, you don't need their permission. What kind of pictures would you frame from your own life, knowing you get to write the caption?